This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Time passed quickly. In just a few blinks, Yunxiao's pupils gradually changed and returned to their normal appearance. Mei Dong still had a dazed expression on her face and was unable to regain her senses for a long time. However, her eyes were no longer dull and idiotic. Instead, they were filled with extreme shock and excitement. She said in a daze, "What's the name of this martial skill? How can it be so powerful?" After she said this, she felt an abnormal amount of mental pressure. Cold sweat broke out on her forehead, and she felt a little suffocated. "This palm technique is called tender as water," Yunxiao said. "What you saw just now was an illusion cast by a martial emperor, and it is enough to move mountains and overturn seas. If you can comprehend it thoroughly, it won't be a problem for you to challenge an 8 stars martial grandmaster, or even a 9 stars martial grandmaster." Tender as water, Wu, a martial emperor expert. Wu, who are you? Mei Dong was drenched in cold sweat. Just a moment ago, a woman in her sea of consciousness had lightly struck out with her palm, and the heavens and earth had collapsed. The seas had been overturned, and her consciousness had almost collapsed. He had never seen such power before. Even sect master Zhang Linghua would never be able to display such a shocking palm strike. There's nothing strange about that. I'm an alchemist, after all, and alchemists are generally omnipotent. Yunxiao said with a vague smile. But Yingluo. Mei Dong could not explain it either. She revered alchemists very much, but her intuition told her that Yunxiao was not as simple as an alchemist. At least, even the great alchemists in their sect could not directly imprint an illusion of a martial emperor in her mind and teach her a martial technique in such a simple, clear, direct, and effective way. All right, you can slowly comprehend it. I'll continue cultivating. Oh, right, do you have any vitality stones on you? After falling from the outer realm, Yunxiao's soul power and primordial qi had not recovered yet, and he was in urgent need of a large number of primordial stones to replenish his strength. There are. Mei Dong immediately took out a storage bag from her ring and handed it over. There are more than 500 mid-grade primordial stones inside. They are my cultivation resources for this month. Because of Master's love, you have more than your fellow disciples. You can use it without worry, don't be polite. More than 500 pieces of kasaya. Looking at her serious face, Yunxiao pushed her back weakly and said, "You should keep it for yourself. I'll be fine after meditating for a while." More than 500 mid-grade primordial stones were enough for an ordinary martial grandmaster to use for half a year. Even if it was a genius with extremely high talent and strong absorption ability, it could still last for more than a month. But for Yunxiao, he could not even fill the gaps between his teeth, so he felt that he had better find another way. Mei Dong thought that he was embarrassed and forcefully stuffed it into his hands. She said, "How can I cultivate without primordial stones? Today, I'll just meditate and comprehend that palm technique, so I don't need any vitality stones. When I become the sect master's personal disciple, the supply of vitality stones will be doubled, so you don't have to worry about me." With the storage bag in hand, Yunxiao did not explain further, but sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. Only then did Mei Dong sit back on the bed with satisfaction, feeling very happy. But when she saw Yunxiao's face, she was suddenly stunned and said to herself, "Oh no. I still don't know his name." She was vexed for a while, but she didn't dare to disturb him. Thinking of tomorrow's sect competition, she gradually calmed down and entered a state of enlightenment. In the Divine Realm tablet, Yunxiao's soul form appeared beside Yuan Gaohan and asked, "How is it?" In front of Yuan Gaohan was a pile of various materials, and a scarlet heart was beating with a thump 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 sound. A small piece of light yellow suddenly floated in the air, emitting a strong will of the earth. Yuan Gaohan looked at him as if he had seen a ghost and said with some excitement, "Who was the one who refined this half-beast half-tool? I've never heard of such an existence before. You must introduce him to me. He has created a new direction in the history of alchemy, enough to shine in the history." Yunxiao frowned. He had randomly refined the calabash little Vidra in the cauldron of mountain and river. At first, he thought that as long as the heart of stone was not hurt, no matter how hard he refined his body, he could ensure that it would not die. That was why he had tested it, and in the end, he had refined this half-beast, half-tool existence. Moreover, it had also experienced the thunder tribulation outside the Divine Realm tablet and become a martial venerable in the 8 Desolation realm. He immediately explained the situation to Yuan Gaohan, but concealed the cauldron of mountain and river. Hearing this, Yuan Gaohan was completely dumbfounded and said in a daze, "This, you said you made this thing?" His eyes bulged, and he shook his head desperately. He said angrily, "That's impossible. Since I've already promised to work for you, I won't go back on my word. There's no need for you to hide anything from me. You only have 6th tier spirit power, how could you possibly refine an 8th tier profound armament?" "But that's the truth," Yunxiao said with a wry smile. "When an alchemist's understanding of materials and alchemy has reached a certain level, it's not strange that he can refine something beyond his level. After I use the soul battle technique, I can rush to the peak of the 6th rank and refine the 7th rank gourd little guardian warrior. Isn't it normal for him to experience the thunder tribulation outside and become an 8th rank martial venerable?" Yuan Gaohan was stunned. In theory, there seemed to be no problem, but in reality, it couldn't be so smooth, let alone this kind of half-beast, half-tool refining, which had never been done before. "You know," Yunxiao continued, "any new alchemy technique in the history of alchemy is produced by chance. Now that this gourd little King Kong has advanced to the 8 Desolation Realm Martial Supreme, or rather, an 8th tier profound armament, I can't repair it with my current soul power. That's why I've asked you to study it." Only then did Yuan Gaohan somewhat believe it. Looking at the pile of broken materials, which had been fused into pieces and seemed to be moving, he frowned and said, "It still has the characteristics of a demonic beast, and the stone beast's self-healing ability has also been inherited. It's just that the materials used to build its body are all 9th rank, which exceeds its own level, so the fusion is unusually slow. As long as there is enough time, and the heart of stone doesn't die, it will be able to completely heal itself." Yunxiao smiled wryly. "Old Yuan, there's no time now. Look at the speed. It'll take at least 1 or 2 years for it to repair itself, right? My thoughts now are the same as before. As long as the heart of stone doesn't die, can't we just use sorcery to repair its body like a profound level weapon? Your Starlight soul power is at the 8th step, so you should be able to help him recover." Yuan Gaohan also had an expression of eagerness and excitement. Any new discovery in the study of alchemy was enough to make these alchemists unable to sleep at night, and they would never give up until they got to the bottom of it. It was also this spirit that guided the Tao of sorcery to continuously develop and develop. "What kind of cauldron did you use to refine it? Let me use it." Yuan Gaohan already couldn't help but want to start. With a wry smile, Yunxiao touched the bridge of his nose and said a little embarrassedly that purple cauldron was already used as a weapon in a battle, but it was destroyed. "Can't you just set up a formation in the air and fix it with your bare hands?" Yuan Gaohan's mouth opened wide and he cursed, "You prodigal. He's actually using a purple cauldron as a weapon. It's my first time trying this kind of restoration and refinement, so I'm not confident at all," he said angrily. "If you don't have an 8th grade cauldron to use, I refuse. If the heart of stone is destroyed, where can I find a second half-beast half-tool material to study?" Yunxiao had some concerns as well. After all, he had used the cauldron of mountain and river last time, a saint artifact, and there was also an element of luck in it. He nodded. "It's impossible to get an 8th tier purple cauldron. I'll try to get as many materials as possible. You can make a purple cauldron yourself first. Looking at the treasures on you, you're even richer than a saint, but sometimes you find that you're poorer than anyone else. Bring me some starlight stones first so I can recover my power. Otherwise, you can send me back to the sanctuary. With this and Divine Realm tablet waiting for me to repair, I will definitely not betray you. In fact, there will be great benefits waiting for you. And starlight stones aren't expensive. I'll go to the trade association in Southfire City and see if I can exchange for some materials." After saying that, Yunxiao disappeared into the Divine Realm tablet. His real body in the room opened his eyes and glanced at Mei Dong, who had entered a state of mind. Then, he casually set up a few restrictive spells in the room to prevent anyone from coming in and disturbing him. After that, he twisted the space, and then appeared directly on the street, which was quite lively with people coming and going. The people around him were all shocked when they saw him suddenly appear, but they quickly determined that they had seen wrongly. After a few strange moments, they didn't care and continued to do what they had to do. Yunxiao asked a passerby and learned a little about Manhwa. In the whole of Manhua City, there was only one big chamber of commerce, the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce. There were many other small and scattered chambers of commerce, but they were all under the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce's banner. It seemed that the business of the Li Fire Golden Crystals was completely monopolized by the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce. He asked for the location of the Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce and went there directly. The Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce had always been low-key among the 7 council members of the Merchant Union. Although it was not in the core 4 leagues, its strength had always been elusive, which made the other leagues elusive. It also had very few cooperation and exchanges with other chambers of commerce in the Merchant Union, as if it had become a country of its own. Yunxiao remembered that the president of the branch in the Sky Fragrance Empire in the southern region had asked him to go to Mount Meru to find the numinous Sky Hall, and they had not contacted each other since. Southfire City was quite large. Although it was not as outrageous as the Lightsong Woodland, it was still much larger than the Upper Sun City of Firecrow Empire. After passing through a few streets, Yunxiao came to the most prosperous place. The Thunderwind Chamber of Commerce's storefront was very conspicuous, taking up almost half of the street. He went straight to the main door and suddenly saw a sign in front of an unremarkable shop. It was a strange circle with a touch of light purple inside. It was extremely inconspicuous in front of the shop, as if it had been drawn by a naughty child. Yunxiao was taken aback, but he quickly turned around and headed toward the shop. There was a plaque hanging on the door of the unremarkable shop with 4 big words on it, the Purple Cloud Trade Union. Yunxiao walked straight in. The door was not big, but the decorations inside were extremely exquisite, orderly, and numerous. And what made his eyes even brighter was that the waiters inside were not sharp-tongued manservants, but a few delicate-looking maidservants who were happily chatting with the guests. "Young master, how may I help you?" 4 maidservants were standing side by side in front of the counter. As soon as they saw Yunxiao come in, the first one immediately came up to him with a smile as bright as a flower, making people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Yunxiao's eyes fell on a jade tablet on her waist, on which the character Wan was written in gold, which was the number of the maidservant. "Is the person in charge here?" Yunxiao asked directly. "The person in charge? Are you talking about guild leader Wu Chen?" The 7th maidservant immediately sized Yunxiao up. Her eyes were very casual, as if she was playing it down casually. In fact, she had made her first judgment in her heart. This person was a young master from an aristocratic family, so he definitely had some background. They had all been carefully selected by the Chamber of Commerce and had received professional training. They was very experienced in judging the status of the customers and communicating with them. Yunxiao's casual look inadvertently revealed the aura of a powerful expert. From the moment he entered the shop, his eyes had casually swept over every detail of the shop. Everything fell into her eyes and she was constantly analyzing it. Your guild leader's name is Wu Chen? That means we're looking for her." Yunxiao had also discovered that these maidservants did not seem to be simple, and each of them had a cultivation base. Although they were not high, they were indeed true warriors. "Please follow me." With a sweet smile on her face, maidservant number 7 made a gesture of invitation and was about to lead Yunxiao inside. "Hold on." A shout came from the corner. A young master in white was furious. He was holding a dazzling dagger inlaid with gold and jade. He shouted, "I also asked to see the president just now. Why did you say that the president wasn't here? Now that this hothead wants to see your guild leader, you're going to bring him in?" After frowning slightly, maid number 7 ignored him and continued to lead him forward with a smile. At this moment, another maidservant quickly came up to the young man in white and smiled sweetly. Young Master Liang, our appraiser has already made an accurate judgment on your green hellstone. The president will not see you, so please come again next time. I'll fuck you again next time? My top-grade netherworld stone is inferior to yours, and you're trying to kick me out? Since when did the Purple Cloud Trade Union become so powerful in the Southfire City? Young Master Liang's face darkened and he went up to slap her. Pa. The maidservant turned pale with fright and tried to dodge. However, although she had some strength, she was no match for this young master. She was directly slapped to the ground. Everyone was shocked and stopped talking. The maidservants who were waiting for the guests inside hurriedly ran over and helped their sisters up. Young Master Liang's face was filled with fierceness, and the experts behind him immediately surrounded him. The atmosphere in the shop suddenly became somber, but everyone just looked on coldly. No one made a fuss or ran away. Those who could come here to trade were either influential families or martial artists with status, and they had seen all kinds of situations. Things like this, where one did not like it, and used one's power to bully others, also happened from time to time. The final result wasn't about who was reasonable, but who had the bigger fist. Everyone knew this young Master Liang. He was the son of the deputy sect master of a sect near Manhwa City. His strength wasn't much, but he was quite famous. He hung out with the rich playboys of the aristocratic families all day long and liked to do some sneaky things. If Wuchen doesn't give me an explanation today, I won't let this matter rest. Young Master Liang shouted, a smug look on his face. He stared at the maidservants who were gathered together and laughed. For a long time, there was no sound in the entire shop. Some customers outside the door wanted to come in, but after sensing the atmosphere inside, they all left to avoid getting into trouble. What? Yunxiao asked in surprise. Why doesn't the Purple Cloud Trading Company have a guard? Maidservant number 7 bit her lips. Her face was slightly pale, and her eyes were full of anger. It was obvious that this was not the first time she had experienced such a thing. However, she could not voice her difficulties. She suppressed her anger and forced a smile. Young master, please come in. The matters here are up to others to handle. We cannot delay young master's important matters. Young Master Liang's eyes turned and he looked over. He was furious. You dog slave, you dare to look down on this young master's existence. Drag her over and beat her up. Fight until Wuchen appears. The 4 martial artists behind him immediately rushed over. They couldn't help but separate and pull the struggling female number 7 over. A big man on each side held her arm and another person held her head, dragging her in front of Master Liang. Young Master Liang's expression turned cold and he laughed. She's quite pretty, but I wonder if she's been deflowered. I'll teach you a good lesson first, then I'll reward you with sexual bliss tonight. He raised his head again to look at the other maidservants who were curled up together. He chuckled and said, and all of you too, let this young master love you well together. After he finished speaking, he raised her hand and slapped female servant number 7's face. Her face was flushed with excitement, as if she was extremely happy. However, his palm was caught in the air by an arm. It seemed that the other party did not use too much force, but he was unable to move. Young Master Liang was taken aback. It was Yunxiao who had grabbed his arm. Kid, who are you? This must be your first time in Southfire City, right? How dare you meddle in this young master's affairs? Yunxiao was extremely surprised. The Purple Cloud Chamber of Commerce was also a member of the Business Alliance. Although it was not a permanent member, it was comparable to an ordinary local force. Moreover, the Purple Cloud Trading Company was under the jurisdiction and protection of the Tianyuan Trading Company, which was why Yunxiao had come in. There were more than 100 chambers of commerce in the Merchant Union, large and small, and they were involved in all the businesses on the heavenly martial continent. However, the competition between these chambers of commerce was also extremely fierce. In order to prevent other chambers of commerce from being annexed or maliciously attacked, many of them would rely on some large chambers of commerce, with them as the core, forming small alliances. And the 7 ordinary people council members were undoubtedly the biggest core support. Ding Ling had told him some things about the merchant union. Among the many small merchant associations attached to the Tianyuan Chamber of Commerce, the Purple Cloud Chamber of Commerce had a very good relationship with them and was also very powerful. He had walked into the Purple Cloud Chamber of Commerce to ask for help, but it seemed that what Ding Ling had said was not true. He did not dare to say anything when a random cat or dog bullied him, and he did not see the president when he was bullied. Yunxiao did not get angry, but he found it very strange. He asked in a kind voice, "Can you tell me why you're so strong? How dare you act so arrogantly in the Purple Cloud Trading Company, beating people up at will?" Young Master Liang was furious. A random hothead dared to meddle in his business and didn't seem to be afraid of his power. He was so angry that he wanted to slap this hothead to death, but he was stunned to find that his hand was like an iron clamp. He couldn't take it off and it was getting more and more painful. He couldn't help but say, "Do you know who my father is? My father is the deputy sect leader of the New Moon sect, Liang Yi, a peak 9 stars martial emperor. I'm the son of my father, Liang Yi, and also his only son, Liang Quan. Let go of me now, or you'll suffer." Yunxiao was even more puzzled now. Even the vice sect leader is only a 9 stars martial emperor. How could he dare to provoke the Purple Cloud Trade Union? He increased his strength and gently bent it. The sound of bones breaking could be heard, and Liang Quan's right arm was broken. "I don't want to hear nonsense. Just tell me why you have the guts to be so arrogant." Liang Quan cried out in pain, which frightened the other 4 warriors. They glared at him, but they did not dare to come forward, for fear that Yunxiao would kill them directly. Don't break it, it hurts, I'll talk. Liang Quan's head was covered in cold sweat, and he replied honestly, "Some time ago, an idiot pawned a stone in my New Moon sect's pawn shop as an ordinary 8th tier material for only 3 million mid-grade primordial stones. After the pawn shop's appraiser carefully analyzed it, he discovered that it was actually a 9th grade green hellstone, and its value was more than 10 times higher. At that time, I happened to be at the pawn shop, so I took it and wanted to find a merchant association to sell it for some pocket money. Who knew that after going to a few, they all said that my green hellstone was low grade and not worth much. The price difference between the same material and the different quality would be huge." Yunxiao naturally understood this, so he asked, "Since the other chambers of commerce all say that your tea is low grade, why do you only dare to show off in the Purple Cloud Chamber of Commerce and not in other places?" This. Liang Quan suddenly stammered, and the cold sweat on his forehead became even more intense, as if he had something he didn't dare to say. "How troublesome." Yunxiao gave a cold cry and pointed his index finger at the man's shoulder. Immediately, a stream of energy pierced through his shoulder blade, and blood gushed out. He looked at Liang Quan, who was screaming in pain, and said coldly, "If you don't say it now, the next hole will be below." Liang Quan's entire body trembled. He felt a chill down his crotch and almost peed his pants. At this moment, the servant girl number 7 suddenly said, "Young master, thank you for helping us, but this is the business of the Purple Cloud Chamber of Commerce. You should stay out of it." Yunxiao turned around and saw the maidservant's eyes full of gratitude, but also a little bit of pessimism and grievance. They had all been professionally trained, so they knew what to do at this time. If Yunxiao hurt Liang Quan, they would have made a great enemy of the New Moon sect, and now was the most critical moment for the Chamber of Commerce, which meant that they could not afford to make another enemy. So, they could only sacrifice their dignity to fulfill their wish.